Hi, hello, and welcome to the Place of Wrath and Tears, a Cult Divinity Lost actual play stream, not a podcast like I kept trying to say last week. We are back. We are recording, which is fantastic. We have tracked down a mostly unmissable live studio audience. We have bribed the police in a few important moments, so we're pretty good, and we are now ready to tell you some scary stories. Tonight we're actually going to be somewhere different, as the introduction may have hinted. We are going to spend some time in Pittsburgh, the home of the Van Horsts, the home of steel, and a number of other things. So if you are excited to hear more about the Van Horsts growing up and learn more about them as people, and to hear me write verbal love poems to a really weird city, then you are in the right place, because that's what's going to happen tonight. And I think we are ready to get started. When Old Gods of Appalachia came to town about a month ago, Steve Shell said something very true, and he said, y'all put a city just right down in the holler, didn't you? And that is true, because Pittsburgh is a whole ass city in a valley. When you drive around Pittsburgh, you can see the city sprawling up the sides, buildings and bridges growing out of the green, which is pretty cool. But right now, the Van Horsts are going through a tunnel, a brand new tunnel made with Van Horst steel, supported by their own art and possibly artifice. Beautiful, like milk white tiles line the walls. It is well lit. It is one of these pinnacles of 1957 modern engineering. And so when you come out of this tunnel, it is the first time that you are going to be presented with the entirety of the skyline of Pittsburgh all at once. Normally, you have to do a fairly convoluted bullshit route to get from the airport to here, and that has been eliminated by this particular tunnel. And so, all at once now, you are shown the hometown. The skyline of various buildings, many of them from the turn of the century, rises up, and it is the skyline of home. So how does now, I mean, the house is further away. We're about an hour away from home, but this is home. So how does it feel to see this skyline, to see the shape that means we are in Pittsburgh again?
Clara wants to cry. She's gently hormonal and has missed it a lot, and it just feels a lot better than the desolation of Vegas and the falseness. So she lights a cigarette instead and reaches for whatever's left of the flask after this very long journey.
Yeah, it is a sight to see.
I would say Matthew feels stabilized is the best way of doing it. There's a level of being adrift that he is when he is away from Pittsburgh. There's a level where he is, away from his true place of power in the illusion, at least.
Yeah.
The closest thing that he has to, what he wants to create in a lot of ways. And coming back to that feels grounding to him. Perhaps in the same way that, sitting in a, set of very worn shackles does in some ways, because it's also something that ties him down. But it's something that has tied him down in a way that he sees as comforting almost. This is what he remembers. This is what he has been raised and born for. This is the place that he, until very recently, never left. And I think what ends up happening with him is that he takes a deep breath of the air. He rolls down the window and just wants to get the city smell.
Yes.
Not the desert smell anymore, not the the way that the desolation of the nature was, but that city smell, that steel smell.
Oh yeah. Because the steel mills, they are a banging.
Oh yeah.
In 57, they are running. They are running hot.
That smog smell. But I think he also, even while he's doing that, takes a moment to look at Bethany, because for all that this is his comforting shackles, he knows that these weren't very comforting shackles for her.
Bethany is staring out the window, but like a kid who's pushed their nose to the glass of something and are staring very intently in and through. And it is unclear if it's a wanting, or if it's this desire to see what's at the back of the shop, but she's looking at Pittsburgh in a way that she never has before, because the 3 months that they were in the Vegas is the longest she's ever been away. She, like Matthew, also never left, but more than him, she rarely left the house. So even the city is not as a familiar sight to her. But she feels like she knows more now, and she feels like if she can just stare hard enough, she can see the thing that's behind it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, he did clean it up. So, in the last 10 years, a mayor of significant will named David L. Lawrence fought a battle, some could call it, generally you could call it a noble battle, to literally clean the air of Pittsburgh. Woody Guthrie wrote a song that the first lines is Pittsburgh town is a smoky old town. There is a nickname for Pittsburgh that was hell with the lid off. When you guys were growing up in Pittsburgh, the smoke was abominable. Could not see across the street at times. All of the pictures of Pittsburgh were essentially these just sonic shapes in the smoke lit by the fires of industry. It was a pretty terrible place, which is why everybody with money ended up having a house in Latrobe and Ligonier, because the smoke didn't get that far. But now the skies have been generally cleared up. Is it perfect? No. But is it, profoundly better? Yes. So, Matthew, when you roll down that window and you kind of go for that hit of city smell, it is both the same and different than when you grew up. Because the air is cleaner. I mean, changes have been made. It isn't quite as profoundly just absolutely smoked to death like it was. What did you think about that?
I feel like because like this has been going on for like the past, you said 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think that for Matthew at least, like the change has been something that, you know, he was around for and that he saw happen. And, you know, I'm sure in some ways prides himself on the fact that, you know, look how much less smoke, you know, we do, also being very efficient, et cetera, et cetera. PR was very good. But so for him, I think it's less immediately affecting, just because he's used to it at this point. But I think that when it first happened, it was definitely just a shock of like, this is what it's like to be able to like walk into, you know, walk through the streets here, not just at home where we were like more away from things, but and actually be able to breathe. And like, I think that was certainly a sudden change and or a feeling of change, that almost the sort of thing where like when something like that changes so drastically, there's almost a sense of like, I don't want to say embarrassment, but like that sense of like, why were we in smoke for so long if we could have done this?
Yeah.
Sort of like frustration, I think. But yeah.
Don't worry, there's plenty of smoke that still lives in every single fucking piece of stone in this city.
Oh, good.
Yes. Every piece of exposed stone, granite, concrete absorbed the smoke and is that sooty, rich black. Aside, it's 2023 and they are still cleaning that shit off the buildings. Like historic preservation / water blasting is a booming business in Pittsburgh. And yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting. It's almost like the smoke did get taken out of the air and sucked into the buildings. There's of course the three rivers where they meet in the middle of the city. That meeting point is called the Golden Triangle or the Point. And that is definitely, that's inside that triangle of the rivers is where all of the money is. So that is where the Van Horst offices are. This is where the what will become the cultural district is. And everything on the other side of the rivers is at this point not. So there is a class divide, there is a culture divide, there is regrettably a rather significant racial divide in Pittsburgh. It does have a complicated history with race. The Civic Arena, for example. So you're kind of going through the city now because a lot of the highways aren't all the way in yet. So it's not that really nice straight shot where you come out of the tunnel and then you go right. And I think you're on Boulevard of the Allies and you just scoot all the way through town till you get on 376. It doesn't work like that. So there is a little bit of ground traffic.
It's all right. Honestly, the moment that we start kind of going into town and we see the spire of Van Horst Steel raise up, which nowadays, as we've talked about, is known as the USX building, but Van Horst Steel Incorporated, Clara would look at Matthew and go, "Darling, do you want to stop and drop off the metal before we drive all the way out home so we can get started on it? I know we've been traveling forever, but we're here. It's 5 minutes that direction versus driving an hour out to home and then an hour back into the city."
Will the two of you be all right waiting in the car? Or would you want to come in?
I could wait.
Do you want to wait? You don't want to come in and see?
Either way.
Why don't we come in? We can shake a few hands, you can drop the metal off, and then we'll all be on our way.
Works for me.
Bethany, there is a very good chance that whatever person you called at butts o'clock in the morning to get crucible advice is probably going to be relatively close to wherever your brother is going. I don't know if that provides you with personal impetus in the positive or the negative, but it is that department.
He doesn't know if that's positive or negative yet either. That's just information in her brain.
Yeah. So just I want you to take a minute and imagine this scene, because metallurgy in this like practical steel mill metallurgy is a thing that often happens closer to the mills than the offices. They are engaged in the testing and the control of the metals, and so they're over that way. And so imagine, if you will, you are a steel worker at one of the Van Horst mills, and into one of the doors walks the boss, the capital T, capital B, italics, bold font, underlined, broad typeface above the fold, the boss, and his fucking sisters, and their driver. No, not their driver. Whatever
See,
works.
it's like, I'm just going to stay in the car.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody has to keep the engine going and be ready for us. Make sure we don't get ticketed at our own building.
Just kills a cop and stuffs him in the trunk. So thankfully, the way you have to walk isn't through the messiest parts of the mill, but you are certainly going through the dirty guts of the mill. And so it takes about 3 to 4 minutes, which is, you can decide how good of a reaction time that is, before someone before a kind of a managerial person comes not running up. Kind of
walking.
A little bit wild-eyed, very much why is the owner of the company here all of a sudden? There is never a good reason why the owner of the company walks in through a side door. And so he comes up and kind of is sticking out his hand, "Hello, Mr. Van Horst. It's a pleasure to see you, Mr. Van Horst. What can we do for you, Mr. Van Horst?"
Matthew does a little bit of just like, perfunctory glad handing of like, things are looking good, but then he does get to the point, which is that he needs to speak with, what was the guy's name?
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember either. Johnny on the spot.
The metallurgist.
Yeah, the metallurgist. He'll know why I'm here. He has talked to him.
Yeah. What is Matthew's rep? Is he an eccentric boss? Like, does he do weird shit like walk in the side door and demand to see a metallurgist, or is this new?
I feel like I feel like he is an eccentric boss in the sense that like Matthew takes after the business stylings of Malice Van Horst. And Malice Van Horst also was kind of like, you know, the type of person I at least have gotten the impression of that, like, on the one hand would be like, you know, very like normal when dealing with the upper echelons, but I feel like the lower down you go, the weirder he gets. Right?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
That's the vibe I get, is like the higher up. I feel like if you ask different people what kind of boss Matthew was, they would give you exceedingly different answers.
Okay.
Because the level of how much respect one gets for being what is expected, I feel differs in differing areas of the company. You may tell me differently because I don't know.
I don't fucking know, man. I'm only ever on the dirty side.
But like, I feel like there's a certain level of like getting to the point and getting to like the like Matthew has always been interested in not only the business aspect but the steel itself. I think that he's, because we've had like some stuff before where like the industry itself and the steel itself is important to Matthew. And so I feel like when he is talking to people who are actively dealing with the steel, not the money, that's where a lot of his eccentricities come out, of like the intensity of how he feels about what they are doing and how important this work is.
Okay. If you walked up to a worker in the mill right now, in a moment of eccentricity,
yes.
Do you think that they would feel free to speak honestly with you, or do you still expect the bowing and the scraping and the knuckling of the forehead?
Ooh, it depends what you mean by honestly. Like, do you like
if you go checked on one of the smelting processes at one of the major crucibles, and you walk up to one of the people that's running it, like the foreman or whatever, and said, "Hey, John, how's it going?" Do you expect to hear a true answer or the correct answer?
So horribly, I'm actually taking this from when Matthew union busted, which is horrible and I feel terrible about. But the way he did that was by pushing into that we're all here together, we're all a family, we're all a community vibe, which is why you don't need to unionize. Like that sort of horrible toxic mentality.
Oh yeah.
By like also making sure that like they got like extra, you know, things to take home to their families, extra food, extra this, extra that, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that he plays into that sort of idea of, yeah, you can talk to me, you can tell me anything, you know, you can be honest with me. Like I'm here, you know, I'm here for you. I care about, you know, getting this done and getting this made for everyone. It's so gross. It's so gross because it's so fake. But like, I think that that's very much the sort of style. He's not. And the thing is that part of why like it's so clear that it's fake, if you look at the aggregate, if you look at the entirety of it, is that the moment that he's in the boardroom, he's like, you better bow, you better scrape, you better like have all the like hierarchical sort of ways of doing that, because he knows that that's how you get respect in those areas. But that's not how you get respect on the floor.
So this is at the end of the day, it is all a very cold-blooded calculation about efficiency. Yeah.
It's code switching for efficiency. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, this is his machine.
Yes. Okay. Then the response that you get as you go from point A to point B is, well, first of all, it's kind of fun because you can watch the fact that you're in the building ripple, and there's a little flurry, you notice that there are that there's always seems to be a broom, like a very recently used broom right there. and things like that, or it's just that last 5% of zhuzh that always happens whenever the boss walks in. I'm having a lot of flashbacks because machinist. I've done all of this, and so but that's fine. That's expected. You can there's everybody's shoulders are back, their heads are up, their guts in, and the funny thing is that that there's a foreman that you walk past that's been with you for probably 30 years. He is an incredibly good foreman, but he swears enough for an entire battalion of Marines. Like it is either like steal information or vulgarity that pours out of his mouth in equal volumes. But he also is one of these people that never, ever, ever swears in front of certain people. So like he will never swear in front of a woman. Like he will sooner die than drop an F-bomb in front of a lady. And he will sooner die twice than drop an F-bomb in front of the boss. But it is such a part of his language that you recognize him, and you can see him like editing his reel as he talks. Because he does a thing where like he leans forward every time he cuts a word out. So I need you guys to get the steel going. I need this to happen. I need this, by 10 o'clock tonight. You could just hear like the 10 fucking o'clock tonight. Okay. Like you hear all of the language, but he's not saying it, which is the important part. Now, this is a loud, messy place. This is a loud, messy place that is a very, very high sensory environment. Thankfully, you guys are not quite in the worst parts of a steel mill. Some of it is extremely loud and extremely unpleasant. So, but it is definitely, regrettably, there are parts of it that do remind you a little bit of Inferno. The heat, the blackened metal, the relentless artificiality of the environment. It's not bad, but you do know that if you ever had to walk actually through the crucible areas and the smelting areas, that it would definitely probably start triggering some flashbacks. It's a rough time. But onwards to the metallurgy department, which is in a very liminal space between collar colors, because there is interfacing with guys that are on the floor. They are bringing samples and they are doing quality control tracking and stuff like that. But also these gentlemen are scientists. These are men with degrees who went to college, who are very smart and organized and are doing the science trademark. And so there is it's that kind of an in-between space. So when you get into the metallurgy department, I really wish I could remember that guy's name, and we're not going to stop and go find it now. What's a name we haven't used yet? How about Mr. Dale? Yeah, Greg Dale, the metallurgist. So Mr. Dale looks up, and he is somewhere between 55 and 105. He has lived a life where he has primarily been in industrial environments, and that does things to your aging speed. He also smokes. which does things to the way you age. He is smoke on the inside and on the outside. But he has a pair of really beautiful brown eyes that twinkle. He very much has a poem about Santa Claus twinkle to his eyes, and he has a live caterpillar for a mustache. He has like a Sam Elliott mustache that just lives its own life underneath his nose. And the thing that kind of gives at least one of you probably a kind of a positive feeling is that he smiles with a closed mouth. He does not toothily smiles. He does this. And what that does is it makes his mustache just go like a scared cat. And it is a very distinct thing. And he has had that smile and that mustache since your father was young and you were kids. So it is one of the things that has been a constant in Papa's factory and now your brother's or your factory for a very long time. This is the man who knows how to who dealt so kindly with Bethany at something o'clock in the morning, treating her with patience and kindness, but also with more than adequate respect for her intellect. And so he kind of looks up from the desk where he's working. He shuts whatever day book he's working on, puts the pen away, stands up and absolutely gives both Bethany and Clara that big smile, that like, I see you, hi, welcome, because he knows that as soon as he says hello to his boss, that's going to be where his focus is. So he wants to greet the other two before it becomes rude to take his attention away from the man that signs his paychecks. So he stands up and, hello, Mr. Van Horst. What can we do for you today?
I need to take a moment to state that I love this little friendly piece of beef jerky. But Matthew will give him a handshake of a hello, and say, Greg, you remember I told you about a new steel that I was looking at.
Yes, sir. I've been wondering. Sounds like you have a story.
Yeah, we found this new, I guess that we would call it an ore. I'm like asking, like, would it be called an ore? Would it be called a material?
You would probably at this point call it an alloy, because it has been purified.
Okay.
And so probably the safest lie would be to say alloy.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I can't say like weird caterpillar poop. So like we gotta go with what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we melted down the corpses of some fucking space caterpillars. Can you make a building out of it? Like, that's a hard conversation to have.
Quick, make this. But he'll take out a little box from his I'm gonna say pocket, because you said that was like about the size of like half an orange, so it's not like massive. We found this alloy and we've been trying, and I feel like if there's anyone who can figure out how to replicate it, it's gonna be you.
And he raises his eyebrows, and his eyebrows go way, way up, because this is 1957, which means that this is the era of Project Paperclip. Now, we all know that this is not crazy Nazi bullshit. However, the story of, I found a weird thing that I have very little context for, can you please science it?
Yeah.
There is no paperwork or other information. Can you please
science it?
Can you America this for us, please?
Yeah,
So,
no. And he's
I
going to let him go with that because that's the easiest way, frankly, to explain it.
Well, but it's also like this is Russia. There's major movers of the world that are trying. I mean, this is kind of the time when the advances of World War II are really being refined. And so he's just kind of like, he raises his eyebrows in that, like, is this going to be one of these things that I have to figure out with essentially no information because the paper trail on this doesn't exist? Or is it the bottom of the ocean in a submarine? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I feel like they have like that little conversation with their eyes of like, is this what? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine that this is the first time that trade secrets has entered this part of the building.
Not at all.
And so he clears off a spot on one of the tables, and he puts on cotton gloves, and he opens the box very reverently, as this with the reverent care that a jeweler would open a box containing, I don't know, the fucking Hope diamond. And so he opens the little box, and he picks it up, and immediately you can see that there is both confusion and rapture in equal measure, because he knows enough about metal to go, oh, this is interesting. But this is also so almost literally alien to him that he's kind of going, what the fuck is this? So he kind of starts thinking about it a little bit, and picks it up and looks at it, and cleans off whatever travel or crucible soot that was on it. Looks at it, and he gives Matthew, I don't want to say he gives you a hard look, because it's not, but he gives you a like, this is super duper important, isn't it? Like one of those, like, this is a no questions asked, but this is about to be the middle of my life for a period of time. Like facial expressions.
The look that Matthew gives him back is very much one of like, it gives weight to the words that he says, I would say, which is never seen anything like it in my life.
Well, me neither, sir. So he immediately starts doing some very basic tests. He's doing scratch tests, hardness tests. He's got files, very, very small, precise files that he is using, because one of the things that you do is you have files of various hardnesses, and you see which thing loses metal, and that is a brute force way of checking hardness. There's some better ways to do it, but that's a quick and dirty way. And so he starts doing hardness testing. He starts very carefully filing off into like a little piece of paper, just like, just a few grains of the metal. And he starts testing. Am I a metallurgist? No. Am I like, but imagine, if you will, a really great, 1950s science fiction movie testing montage of things that are bubbling and things that are burning and swirling things in beakers. I know at least one scientist who's like, Ben, I have so many things to tell you, and I'm going to call you and swear at you as soon as this game is over. And so he starts to do that. Now, this is going to be a pretty long process, but he does, after, I want to say maybe 20 minutes, he starts to get that, like, a little wild-eyed. He's getting a little bit like, I am not entirely certain what I'm looking at here. This is super weird. not having a panic attack, but that like, oh, okay, we're not just figuring out stainless steel. We're not just like finding a percentage of chromium in this. Like there is some shit.
I feel like over the course of it, like if this was a movie or something like that, you just like start having like the repeat of like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
Like, starting to like repeat and be like, oh.
Definitely a like, oh, buddy.
Mm.
Yeah, stainless is pretty old. It's like it started a while ago, but definitely had some new alloys in World War II. Yeah, I mean, so he's like, and so he does a minute, and at this point, several other people in the office have now realized that the boss has brought home something weird. And so now he's starting to get a couple of looky-loos looking over his shoulder, and they're starting to have the mumbled conversations. And looks like you have made all of these guys stay late for work tonight because
like Matthew will like finish up the conversation basically with like effectively being like, I know that I'll be seeing some amazing things coming from this. He doesn't say soon, but there's like that sort of thing of just like,
yeah,
eventually,
yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely how he's feeling.
Yeah. And it's definitely like a thing where he's like, he's honest about the fact he's like, I don't know whether or not this will be able to be replicated if we can do it, but if anyone can, it's us.
Yeah, he agrees with you, but he also in that like if he's leaning real hard on if.
And Matthew's not going to be like, especially because he knows it's like a non-Euclidean magical alloy. He's not going to be like, oh, if you don't get this, then like I'm gonna, rah, rah, rah. His thing is that he's pushing it in the sense of like, if we do this, we are going to be the greatest people in the world. Like and there's a lot of, again, like as I said before with the manipulation, a lot of we language. This is our thing. This is our creation that we can do. That sort of idea.
Yeah. Bethany, as the burgeoning madness mage, you are generally certain that this man is going to have to be at the very least awakened before he can figure this out. Like, you're going to have to crack this man.
Yeah. So Bethany has realized one of the things that she needs to do is try to really remember Crucible Night that she doesn't really remember. Like, that happened in a flurry. But it's the same alloy. Like, it's still maggots that she made Matthew a hand out of. Just for the thing. And so if she can try to remember, and I don't think she can do it now, but if she's gonna try to remember and like make notes. She's been paying attention to what he's doing and what he's been writing down, because he did talk to her very thoroughly about the things that she needed to do. So she's like, if I can give him some hints of the things that actually worked when I used it, she wants to be able to have like some notes to give to Matthew to have him slip amongst this guy's papers at a later date, so that he can stumble upon them and have potentially a revelation.
Yeah.
I have some ideas for what we can do going like after this that we'll talk about a little bit later on.
She's mostly
that
been watching him deeply regretting, going, I don't know what the hell I did when I got it to work.
Yeah, I've definitely got some ideas, and none of them are going to end well for these poor men.
No.
I'm like, oh, you made him so nice and like the little caterpillar smile. Oh, we're gonna fuck this poor man's brain up.
Yeah.
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 He'll know the truth, though.
Yeah,
He'll be better off, but ready for the real world.
Yeah.
It's better.
He'll be fine.
everyone has to leave the nest sometime.
Exactly. It'll be a real part of the Van Horst kingdom.
Yeah. If this was a multimedia empire, there would be like a 1 or 2 issue like special edition story done in really, really, really like impressionist art comic book as you know, the man goes slowly insane trying to figure out how to make Metropolis metal. Oh yeah. He's doomed.
Well, he's doomed.
He will take at least one person with him. Yes. So this seed is planted.
Mhm.
Gonna cover it up with some dirt and move along.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. So do you want to do anything on the executive level, or?
I think he does like a quick sort of like once over around like the walkthrough that, you know, he's not going to just come in, go to metallurgy and then be like deuces out. Like there's a certain level of, you know, like propriety that he has to do. He needs to basically like do a walk around he hasn't in a long time. So, you know, he needs to be seen. For one, he needs to talk to like the various levels, and eventually he goes up to the top, and make sure that he actually checks in with his secretary, who probably is like, this massive sheaf of papers, please God, read them.
Yes.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So like, you know, that sort of thing, but like he you know, states like, you know, I'm going to be coming back, you know, we've just gotten back into the city, you know, I'm going to be, you know, but like he doesn't just like peace out before like at least doing a basic once over, but it is a once over. It's not a stay around sort of thing because they need to get home.
Yeah.
We left our soldier in the car.
You did.
The windows are cracked, but we do eventually need to get him.
Yeah, the AC is on. He is listening to his favorite war crimes. Yeah. And we'll have a jam session, Elon, and we'll kind of lay the groundwork for corporate intrigue.
Yeah,
and make sure that there's enough dickheads in there to make it interesting.
I think it'll be good. My only warning is that I have no out of character knowledge of how corporations work, so like I will do some research.
We will treat it with as much hand wavium as we do metallurgy. I'm
like, if you wanted to do something about public interest law, I could get you right there.
Yeah. I'm laughing to myself because I'm already mad at the Metropolitan Steel for how much of a pain in the ass it's going to be to machine.
Oh, it is going to be the worst to machine.
Yeah, like I know that inherently. I'm just like, oh, I can hear my tools. Like I can hear this thing shearing the edges off my fucking carbide.
Maybe we need to make tools out of the steel, and then
okay. So crazy story that's related to that. My grandpa, my maternal grandfather, was a machinist for most of World War II. What they made were the big armor plates that went in front of the anti-aircraft guns on Navy vessels. So if you call back in your mind those seats that had the bolted on layers of armor on the guns, they made those. Yeah, and just take a minute, imagine an aircraft carrier, and then realize that somebody somewhere made every single piece. And then think about how many they made. So apparently these things were, of course, heat treated, and the heat treat was so hard on the edges, on the parts that they had to machine off, that they were almost harder than the tools they had to cut it. So what my grandfather told me, he's not around, I can't double check. So this is absolutely, anecdotal storytelling here. But apparently there were two guys assigned to each milling machine. One guy was actually machining the metal, and the other guy was hand grinding the tools back in. Grinding the cutting edges back onto the tools, and they were just passing the tools back and forth as they wore them out. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. Of course, that's a memory that is a memory of a story from like 20 years ago. So he could have remembered it differently, and I could have remembered it differently. So, don't cite me in your research papers, but that is a story I distinctly remember being told. So yeah, that's a thing that happens. High speed steel is pretty kick-ass, but it is not the be all end all. So anyway, yeah, okay. I definitely want to make sure that we've got some corporate stuff there so that Matthew has enough scenery to chew on when he sets up his your divine kingdom. We need the pieces there, just like we needed some dancers and some other stuff to make sure that Clara could do her Metropolitan story correctly. We need our people. So I felt like I was going somewhere more profound with that, but I think that's adequate. So okay, is there anything else you want to do while you're here, or anything else that I missed hearing?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. So I think we've been recording for about an hour or so. So how about we take a quick break, and then this is as we leave the steel mill, and then we will come back in however many minutes it is, probably about 10 in your time, future people, and then we will go on to our next piece of the story. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in a minute. Hi, and welcome back to the Place of Wrath and Tears, a Cult Divinity Lost actual play stream. We are back from our break and our ritual excruciation of the live studio audience. And now we are going to go somewhere that we have talked a lot about, but that we have not seen with our own eyes during the stream in our, oh my God, what is it, 47 episodes? We are finally home. We have returned to the Van Horst estate east of Pittsburgh, about actually a half an hour east of where I live in the real world, Latrobe, Pennsylvania, where everybody that could afford to got away from the soot and the smoke and the stink of the city that was making the millions. This is where all of the maybe not all, but pretty much all of the steel barons went and relaxed in their beautiful palatial mansions, in the deep, heavy green of the forest of Western Pennsylvania, of which I have a lot of positive feelings about. So I think that you guys would have driven out 30, right? 30's that old.
Yeah.
Okay, that only matters to me because that means that I can remember the way you're going. Because I live east of Pittsburgh, and I literally, when we go to the farmers market, I literally drive past the bar that Clara went to as a young woman. It's called the Driftwood Tavern. It's super cute. It's got like a martini glass on the thing. So the driveway is long but well maintained. It is. Oh no, it's asphalt. It is, probably tar and chip. And the trees reach up and around the road that you are driving home on, and you have many memories, both of adults and as children, of these trees going past you in the dark, lit only by the dim by our standards headlights of the cars that drove you here. These are the trees that were the things you saw when Malice Van Horst brought you home for the first time. This is that road. When a rich cultist dug you up and found your bloodlines and did very questionable things to make sure that he got his hands on all of you for a purpose that he then rejected once he came to love you truly, that he rejected and paid many prices for. This is that road. This is the transition space from your old life into the life of a Van Horst. And so I guess you can say that this is the second time today that all at once a place that is important to you is revealed as you go around the corner. A graceful arc that is designed absolutely to block view of the front of the house from anyone who's even gotten this far down. And the Van Horst estate is in front of you in all of its turn of the century glory. I think that probably in this moment, the first thing that grabs you is the cleanliness of the stone. Having just gone through Pittsburgh and been able to see the way all of that smoke had been pulled in and sunk into all of the stone of the city, the fact that this does not have that scarring makes it almost pearlescent in comparison. What, as you pull up around the house, it's got the big circular, the like, in my head I call it the entertaining driveway, because it's designed for people to pull up and then let people out of their car, and then the car can go around and pull away and park. As you pull up, as David, as he has done hundreds of times before, smoothly and gracefully brings you around slowly to a stop. Siblings, what is the thing that you see first? Like, what feature of the house is the thing that you see? Do you see the front door or the windows or the stonework or something else? Maybe is there something in the middle of that circular driveway that was a landmark for you? What is the home What is the thing that says home to you? Yeah, I put him on the spot. That's fine.
I mean, for Bethany, it's the front door. And not just the front door, it is the front door being opened because the Van Horsts are coming home, so they should be greeted by staff. And that's home.
Okay.
I think for Clara, it's all the pretty windows with the wrought iron bars through them, but they don't feel like prison wrought iron bars. They are very beautiful iron work with adornments and decorations in all of the corners, and it being summer still, yeah, it's summer-ish in time. Windows being open, so the air is being let out, and it feels like a welcoming home with all of its opulence and all of its elegance and all of the different ways that we can manipulate steel. And steel and iron has been manipulated for us and for our gain for all of these years, just in those tiny little iron details.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I'm gonna do a slight pivot. It's the movement. It's the shadows in the windows. It's the lights that are always on. It's, as was mentioned before, in a big house like this, you're never alone. You have your people there. It's not isolated. There was something very isolating about being even in a hotel room, because it was small and it was isolated and they would come to you. But this is a place where we lived with our people, and we're coming back to them.
Okay. And lo and behold, your people are here. It probably was not a full-on everyone that ever works at the house has to show up and line up kind of day, but there are probably a half a dozen people who are now standing outside, waiting to greet you and do all of the things that this level of wealth at this time expects. Now, an uncomfortable question. Have we replaced our aged major domo one for one? Do we have a new major domo at the house, or is that a position that has been kind of left open?
I don't think that the house could function at the size that it is without one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that sort of thing where it's like, after a certain period, sentimentality has to be put aside for practicality. And for all that we are sentimental about a number of things, especially our dear Major Domo, we are also very practical.
Yeah.
And so I think that, there is a new Major Domo, and I think that he or
well, we don't know anything about them, so how about you guys tell us about them?
Yeah, I'm like, we need to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
But gosh, are they someone who has to my contribution is, they must have an insecurity situation, because they are constantly knowing that they are being compared to the shoes that they are trying to fill.
I've got a real second Mrs. De Winter vibe happening.
Oh yeah. Like that sort of thing of this is someone who is, I think, a perfectionist, because any mistake is magnified by, he wouldn't have made that mistake. he probably would have made that mistake. He really would have. But our rose-colored glasses sure don't think he would have. And it's that sort of idea, right? Like,
yeah. Well, it's your father is too complicated to canonize.
Yeah.
Saint John, however, is easily made perfect and holy.
Oh,
after his death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%. And so I think that there's whoever it is, it's someone who knows and that they have massive shoes to fill and does so by being exacting, probably more strict and more disciplined than St. John was, because they know that every mistake is going to be magnified.
Yeah. So I like inspiring contention between the three of you. It's one of my favorite things to do as a storyteller. So the question I want to ask, as we kind of have this moment of let's Mr. Potato Head a Major Domo, which one of you sons of bitches said that St. John finally has to be replaced? Matthew, okay. Wow. You wanna let that roll around for a minute, or do you just want to be the villain in this fucking story, sir?
Look.
Here's the thing. Bethany wouldn't have said it, but as soon as Matthew did, she would have agreed, because of everyone, Bethany lived in the house. And Bethany lived in the house with just Dad and all of the staff. Which means more than anybody else, Bethany, like, knows that you need someone like that around. Because it's the rest of, like, keeping the entire house running. And she wasn't going to do it because she was upstairs 90% of the time.
Oh, yeah, no, a Van Horst doesn't run their own fucking home. No.
Well, also just she wasn't allowed to go see people. But
yeah.
Also that. But yeah, but she, like, it was the thing where it's like, the staff was one of the places that she was mostly comfortable, like not down in the kitchen, it's not like whatever, but like being served by the staff was a place where she was mostly comfortable interacting with people because they didn't have to count as people in a really terrible way. Mm-hmm. It was they're there for her, and she appreciates and respects that and notices the job they do that's very well done, but she doesn't have to consider their feelings or worry about their opinion of her in any way.
Okay.
So I think that she noticed a lot about the house when she was in it for the decade prior to the first game that we were talking about, or the beginning of the game, not the beginning of the stream, but the beginning of the game. So I think that she just, when Matthew finally says it, she's like, we do, you're right, it's time.
Yeah. And what was Clara's opinion? Yeah.
She didn't live in the house as much, and she was still, like, before we went off to Vegas, off in New York doing shows and things fairly often. So she wasn't paying as much attention, and she probably made an offhand comment like, oh, you're probably right. We could try a woman being in charge, which is totally not like you need a man to major domo in this era, but she made that comment.
Yeah.
Confused and was like, but we have a housekeeper. Like,
I love that, like, Matthew's just like, is it stressful enough without you making jokes, Clara?
It wasn't a joke. I just thought, no, it's fine. Hire whoever you want. I'll be home soon. She really didn't think that hard about it, but didn't fight him on it. But wasn't there to support through the decision. Like, she really hadn't been around full time until we all went off to Vegas.
I feel like the amount of interviews that we had with, like, possible major domos was, like, twice as many as we should have.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody was like, either Matthew was like, this person isn't good enough, or Bethany was like, this person isn't good enough. Like they probably had a lot of arguments where one of them was like, this person might be good enough, and the other one was like, except they didn't shine their shoes right. And like that sort of like, you know, really nitpicky bullshit. That caused a number of arguments that like Clara was like, I don't understand why you guys.
Did Clara finally come home and like look at several of the applications and then pick two and be like, it's one of these two? I don't care which one.
I love that. Yes.
I think so.
Like she's the
Like,
only way that she can...
You said 3 months ago we were doing this. I can't believe that you haven't hired somebody. I read everybody that you had on your desk now that these 10 you've been just debating between. It's one of these two. I don't care which one of them you pick.
I love this because of the fact that like it's a perfect break of the stalemate.
Yeah.
And the two that she chose a very, very old school, like only 10 years younger than St. John. But because he was only 10 years younger, he knew everything. He had everything classic, everything under control. But it also means we're going to go through this again in 10 years, probably. And then her other choice was like the youngest one of the bunch. In his 30s, spit shine, polished, also out of the military, knows everything fresh, has come from a slightly fresher background and might have some new ideas about housekeeping. And she's like, do you want classic and a complete St. John replacement? Or do you want things done slightly differently around this house and somebody who's going to be with us through our children, probably? That's your decision. And she throws the applications down on a table and walks out of the room.
I know which one Matthew would have backed.
I know which one Bethany would have backed.
Okay, paper, rock, scissors. Did you guys actually pick the same one this time?
I'm so curious. Yeah. Okay.
Which one?
So the one that Matthew would have picked, because Matthew would be like, you know, I don't want any, like Matthew deals with new things all the time. The one thing that he doesn't want new is out of the home. He's like, I want class.
Bethany wants the younger one.
They get into another argument.
They do, because she's gonna notice every time that even the classic guy is gonna do something slightly different than St. John. She's gonna notice. So she'd rather all be slightly different, because if it's all slightly different, you know that difference is coming, and it's not that every time something is different, it's this like terrible like loss and heartache and wrongness.
Okay.
That's Bethany's argument for younger. Also, she doesn't want to do this again in 10 years.
I feel like Matthew gets worn down by like Bethany's like very good arguments, because his thing is like, I want to have to like new for him, like he's like, I don't want something new. I want it to be as closest to home as it used to be, and like all this other stuff. And I think that what Bethany manages to get through to him comes from the thing of like, you will notice the ways that they deviate even more.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like
also,
pointing out like it will only the slight misfit of how this will work will chafe worse than if it was completely new. I think is a very good argument to make, even when he's like striving for that comfort of familiarity.
And Bethany's also in the like, you know, sure, we'll have to tell him how to do everything, but he'll do everything exactly the way that we want it, not necessarily the way Papa wanted it. So yeah, those are her two arguments, and she's gung-ho about them.
I do like that it does like definitely like they're definitely like at least two more fights about it during the process, but eventually they get to the point where like Matthew finally is like, okay, but if he's bad, we're firing him.
Yes.
Immediately, like
explains her argument fully to Clara, probably multiple times, to try to get Clara to one, agree with her, and two, tell Matthew that we should get this guy. Like,
Clara agrees. Clara isn't overriding Matthew. She's not. Clara gets so drunk during this process. She's like, I picked down to 2. I'm not. She just gets wasted. She's like, I'm not going to stop drinking until you two make a decision.
I think what I love about this is that as each of them make their arguments, Claire's like, yeah, you're right. And then like the next one makes the argument and she's like, yeah, I'm backing like she swaps between backing each one of them each time. And like it doesn't ever feel like she's not backing them, but also she's like absolutely not.
Either of them.
She's like, I helped enough. I did the most important
Towards
part.
the end, Bethany's definitely won from Clara, but she loves Matthew so much. She's like, that's kind of a point, and I love you. So handsome and smart. But maybe.
I love it.
So this is how we hired our major domo.
You did this, Ben. You're welcome.
I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled to pieces. I'm having like big LARPer feelings because I can imagine this scene at like stupid o'clock on a Saturday night at a weekend LARP.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, all of the heavy shit is done. Everybody's exhausted, but this is just like the role play that organically happened at just way too late o'clock in the morning. You know? It just, I can see the narrative now. Big feelings. Love you guys.
It's very good.
So yeah. This young major domo. This is probably actually the first time that you guys have been gone since their hire.
Yeah.
Like everybody. I mean, Bethany's was almost always home essentially until you went to Vegas. So this is probably the first time that this was a real, we have left for a while and now we're home.
Yeah.
So this is the test. This is the if he fucks up, I'm firing him moment.
Yep.
Yeah. But it looks good so far. He's there. There's a couple of maids. I want to say hand servants, but I think that's like 500 years off. There's like a half a dozen members of the house there. We're ready to take in bags or do whatever it is necessary, or just simply be there to greet the meisters of the house. So, and he is ramrod straight, like shoulders back, gut in, chest out, chin up. Very much aware of the criticality of this moment. This is the first time that you guys have been home. This is the first time that you guys have been away. So this will be the first time that an inspection will occur.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is some shit. Now, did you warn them? Were you like, hey, we'll be home in 2 days? Or was this like a complete surprise?
Oh, no, we had to have warned them because we've been gone for 3 months, they have to have shut up our rooms. Like,
yeah, they need to air everything out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are well warned.
I would assume that if we wouldn't have personally, but I would assume that David would have to make arrangements. Yeah.
Yeah. At the very least, yeah, because there would have needed to be a car and
at the airport and all the things. So
yeah, food, that would have dramatically changed any food purchases. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This is just outside of my realm of experience, so we've just got to talk it through sometimes. So yeah. Well, the front of the house looks fine. You know, nobody's taken the door off the hinges, so far. You know, David knows these people, and he is kind of very much on their equal in terms of social strata. So there is, however, a very Matthew, there is an incredibly dangerous moment that passes very quickly as someone else goes to open the door. One of the other members of the house goes to open the door for you all before David can get out of the car. And so there is, like, all three of you can just, like, see his hackles rise and then, like, visibly calm himself down because he's been used to doing this all by himself for months.
Yeah.
And, you know, having the people you serve all to yourself to serve is a thing. And so now our angel has to share, which is, you know, in his words, some bullshit. So yeah, he realizes in this moment that he is back to being a driver. And so David's feeling some feelings. They're very complicated. And so he just kind of, like, you know, not drums, but he just kind of works his fingers on the steering wheel as somebody else opens the trunk and gets out bags, and someone else opens the door. And he does that, like, he's feeling some things, Matthew. Some of them became very violent almost for a moment there.
Yeah, and it's hard because Matthew's like, oh, this is in the back of my head. You know, it's definitely a thing where Matthew is just kind of like, don't kill my stuff.
Yeah, but it's almost like, I want to describe it almost like a startle reflex, where someone else opens the door and there's just a red flashing light in the back of David's head for a half a second that says, kill, kill, kill. And then he like turns off the alarm because he's like, no, it's you know, these people, they're your friends. Like, this is fine. They're supposed to open the door. Like, this is normal. Everything is normal. Everything is fine. Please, you know, stand down from DEFCON 4. So yeah, and so you are greeted. You know, the major. Do we have a name for the major domo? I did my one improv name for the night, so I'm.
Do we have a Charles in play?
I don't think so.
I like
don't think
Charles.
So. Charles Dalton? Do we have a Dalton? Charles Dalton?
The stuffiest name we've just given this poor man.
Or Burke? Burke is a slightly better last name, easy to say.
Charles Burke.
Charles Burke. That's good. I'll put it in my notes so we remember this one.
Oh, good.
That's entertaining to me because the corporate dickhead from Aliens was Carter Burke.
Oh, I've never seen. If I saw it, it was a long time ago. So.
Oh, it's so good. It's just so good. It's a Vietnam movie. It's great. I have so much trivia about that movie. So yeah, Mr. Burke greets you, and he's extremely formal, but he's also not obsequious. No, he's almost like, I almost want to say he's like new formal. And that there's less of the bowing and a lot of the melodramatics of it. This is a very tight, professional, efficient, low friction kind of service. He says, welcome home, sirs, madams. Please.
Thank you.
Would you like anything? Coffee, tea? Anything prepared to eat? All of the things that now you remember that you can do. You can say, yes, I want a cup of coffee. You can say, yes, make me a fucking omelet. Yes, I want a grilled cheese sandwich. And it's, you don't have to pick up a phone, and you don't have to hope that the kitchen is still open, or any of the other, 100 subtle indignities that you've endured in the last few months.
I think
What
some
time
light
of-
dinner would be lovely, and a drink.
What time of day is it?
Mumble evening.
Okay. Then yeah. Matthew will let Clara take the lead on what they need to get. Because Frank, he's fine with dinner and a drink. He's tired. They've been traveling all day. He had to go through the factory and all that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's a light dinner. It's only 3 courses, which is really the minimum acceptable, honestly. So no, I'm not. I am not writing a menu tonight. I steadfastly refuse.
I feel like actually Clara looks at everybody and looks at how tired Matthew is, and even Bethany, and how she feels. She's like, I know that we are too late for proper dinner, and I think that's fine. Do you all just want to eat in the kitchen? Just grab some food in the breakfast nook and then go to bed?
Well, the breakfast nook is literally designed for casual consumption of food. So,
Yeah.
so that would be fine. It's, 3 courses is barely formal under these circumstances. So that's just,
Yes, dinner in the
I'm taking my whiskey and going to the breakfast nook. And she just kind of plows through all decorum because she has made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
There are little things about receiving quality service and receiving the kind of service that only comes from long years of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like knowing that Bethany hates the sound of the ceramic plate being turned
Mm-hmm.
on probably the marble table in the sunroom.
Yes.
So, the way the plate lands is slightly different because they know that that minute adjustment is actually unwelcome.
Yes.
So there's little things like that. There's stuff like people that know how much cream and sugar Matthew likes in his coffee. So when the coffee comes out and it's poured, there's the right amount of space in the glass. All of these things that only people who have made a act of service learning pick up on. It's all of those wonderful little things. And so all of those little things start to show up, like the correctly poured like the correctly sized coffee, this, that, maybe Clara always likes the little fork. Even if a larger salad fork is technically exactly the right thing, maybe Clara likes a smaller fork, or things like all of those tiny little things that someone only learns by watching. And so those little things that you didn't realize that you've been missing are here. Because, you know, the Tropicana is a beautiful hotel and it is staffed by extremely skilled people, but their service is to the Tropicana methodology and standard, which is, while it's very nice, it is not the Van Horst methodology. And so now you are receiving, you know, the Van Horst method. And so how does that feel? I imagine good, but how quickly does that comfort of familiar service wrap you up?
It's like a tension that you didn't know you had leaving you. I feel for Matthew. Like, you know, you didn't realize that your shoulders were like being held kind of like a weird hunched way until someone gave you a massage and you were like, I forgot how normal shoulders felt.
Yes.
Like, so I think for him, it's very quick, especially with like the way that he feels comfortable when in authority, and dealing with like his people and stuff like that. I think that it very quickly like clicks for him.
Yeah. And it's I love the tense shoulder thing, because I imagine that there is a difference between like knowing that you're going to need to bring your shoulder out of the way for someone to bring your plate in, and knowing that this person has brought you a plate 5,000 times and so they know how to reach around you, that you don't have to move, that the food just kind of is there in front of you at the appropriate time. So yeah, it is a quiet little meal. Salad, you know, a major dish, and then probably something else. I am steadfastly refusing to write a menu because I will go down an autistic rabbit hole of menu design.
As long as it doesn't have lobster thermidor, I think we're fine.
Yeah, that's going to be so funny. It's like, by the way, Mr. Burke, I would like lobster thermidor to be permanently struck from the menus. It will. It is now fired. That's hysterical. You know, if we all ever get together, we are gonna have to go to like a seafood place and get lobster thermidor.
I've never had it, and now I really want it.
I had the luxury of having it in culinary school because we did have like a fish and shellfish class, and I have had lobster thermidor, and it is really, really, really good. So yeah, I would eat that again, and they wave goodbye to you in the broiler. So yeah, because the muscles tense, and so the claw goes up and down. It's a thing. So yeah, it is a wonderful meal, and the coffee is right. It's the right brand. It's the right cups. You know, the cream is local cream. It's from the same farm that you've gotten your cream and milk and butter from for the last 50 years. You know, it's just, you know, the bread is right. The the fish, if there is any, like all of those little things. You know, because this is still the 50s, so this is not mass transit, all food available everywhere time yet. So they're still strongly influenced by local things. So there's things that you have not seen here for a few months. Yeah. You know, the sun is going down. It is very pretty. And the Van Horst siblings eating a meal in the sunroom is, you know, elemental. And so as the sun goes down slowly and lazily over the thick forest and the mathematically flat lawn, And and it's kind of, as the sun goes down, you see the shadows, and you recognize the shadows of the things of the house. You can see those shapes as the sun goes down, the same things that you have seen all your lives. And for some of you, though, that is a comfort, and for some of you, it is a reminder. It's a complicated feeling for at least one of you. Clearly Matthew. But yeah, dinner is had. Clothes are put away and or sent out for dry cleaning or pressed or washed or all of the things are happening behind the scenes. And it's just, you don't have to tell them to repair it. You don't have to send it out. You don't have to say, oh, this dress had a seam rip because, a guy fucked one of my dancers to death in front of me. and I busted a seam dealing with that. You don't have to tell them that. The dress just gets fixed. And so, yeah, the comfort that there are a number of things that are happening around you silently and invisibly is very homey. Excuse me. It's my bedtime.
Honestly, Claire's doing the same thing as hit the end of dinner, 3 whiskeys in and a big meal. She's slumping back in her chair and slowly doing the falling asleep at the dinner table thing, because it's just so comfortable to be home, and traveling is a lot. And
yeah. So unless there's anything that the siblings want to talk about, I think we talked about kind of closing out game by having the siblings go to their either separate or shared rooms, and then kind of closing out game with going to bed at home. Tell us about your room moment. So are we ready to do that, or is there something else we'd like to touch on first?
I think I'm good for that.
Yeah, ready for that.
Okay. Good. Then we can start next game with our classic, where everybody wakes up at the beginning of the game and we make all of our rolls, and it'll be kind of a return to form, which I find very delightful. I actually want to leave Bethany for last, because I think that Bethany's experiences are going to be the most complicated. And so I think that capstoning Bethany with returning to her gilded cage is probably going to be a perfectly fine and healthy tone to finish telling our story for the night on. So I guess Matthew and Clara, I presume that you guys are going to be sharing a bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
they technically have their own rooms, but
yes, but your clothes are there and your things are there, and there's an amount of shared toiletries and things that happen because everybody in the house knows. Could you imagine the older members of the staff sitting down the major domo and be like,
oh my God, yeah.
Yes, they fucking.
You're gonna need to get real cool some stuff real fast.
Yes. I'm gonna need you to speed run this. So, but yes, I mean, all of Matthew's suits and his dress shirts and things like that are in his room.
Yeah.
And now does Matthew have toiletries and probably, whatever sleeping garments he chooses to sleep in and stuff like that? Is there that shared, space at the 2 rooms? Yes. But so whose room are you sleeping in tonight?
I think she generally goes to Matthew's.
That makes sense to me.
So what we'll do is we'll do Clara, Matthew, and Bethany as Clara goes. So Clara, you go back to your room. Tell me something that makes it your room.
It's incredibly high fem, which is why she generally goes to Matthew's, so doesn't have to sleep in this like 40s peach and pink paradise. She has one of those massive vanities with the huge circle mirror on it and like marble tops just covered in jewelry and makeup and everything. And she starts pulling out her current jewelry and just drops it on the vanity, knowing that at some point a servant will come in and organize things so she doesn't actually have to put anything away. So she drops that on the vanity and takes off her dress and just kind of like flings it across a chair somewhere and grabs her robe and takes off her shoes and kind of just takes a breath of her peach paradise that she kind of probably designed when she was 18 or 19 as her like perfect little high femme getaway, and has decadently relished ever since. I'm thinking Rita's Room and Doom Patrol, if anybody watches that, was Kate and I ever did. Enjoys that, but then wraps her robe around herself and jogs off towards Matthew's room. So she doesn't spend a lot of time in her room, just enough to mess it up.
Yeah. Oh, good grief.
Oh, she does pause, actually, and she goes to her closet and pulls a few of her favorite dresses that she knows can be let out, and just kind of hangs a little tag for the things that are going to the tailors and is like, let these out.
Yeah.
Preparing for the future. No other commentary on it. It's fine.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, they will know soon.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if they know yet.
No,
David might have told them.
Rumor mill can start with that.
Basically.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do another newspaper. So Matthew, you have a little bit of time to yourself in your room before Clara inevitably arrives. So, you know, you come into your room. You know, what's your touchstone here?
I think for him, the first thing that he does is get into his pajamas. And it's like I feel like it's like if this was a movie, it'd like be the juxtaposition between it'd go right after you see Clara throwing her dress over a thing, Matthew carefully folding his trousers, taking out her earrings, leaving them places, and him literally you know, rolling the tie and putting it over the little hanging it up and taking out the little tie clip and putting it in a special spot and just very precise, very if we might say mechanical sort of precision, where everything is in its place, everything, and it's so routine, even as he has been away for 3 months. It's so routine that he's not looking where he's putting things, even he just knows where to put them. Things are set up exactly as they are supposed to be. Things are in the places they're supposed to be. There's never a bumping of the hip against the bed frame or against a table, or not looking around where should I put my tie clip. Everything it's just perfectly smooth, perfectly routine.
Yeah.
And he's
just like Kether likes it.
Just like Kether likes it. So yeah, I think that's sort of his sort of ritual of being is everything in its place and everything where it's supposed to be.
Okay, so after Matthew does his serial killer practice, Clara shows up.
And so now Clara is where she's supposed to be.
Yes.
I
do now imagine
terrible and wonderful.
I do now imagine that Matthew is the messiest sleeper.
Oh yeah, no, Matthew starfishes.
Yeah.
100%. Like,
yeah,
that's
like the bed
canon
sheets get
now.
pulled up, like the pillows out of the case. It doesn't make any sense.
He's ended up more than once, like where like he's like somehow managed to get like literally reversed so that his head is now at the base of the bed. Like, what the fuck is going on here? It's just because he has the nightmares flaw. He has the nightmares disadvantage. So like, absolutely, he's the worst sleeper.
I love that so much. So before we kind of like close the scene on you two for tonight on your return home, is there anything you want to talk about or say or do?
I think, at least with how tired they both are, what happens is that Matthew just like tucks her under his chin and like just like they go to sleep together.
Yeah.
You know, and
really
for
good.
that, yeah.
It's a brief kiss and a gentle like I love you and just curl up. Yeah.
It's really cute until his nightmares start and he starfishes. But like, you know, like during that period, it's very adorable.
It was nice until we swapped genres. And
then we have to get into the horror, but you know, right now it's great.
Yeah. Speaking of horror, hi Bethany.
Hi. Oh yes, extremely complicated feelings. One, she is extremely grateful for old buildings and lath and plaster and insulation and her siblings being down the hall. It's been 3 months of hotel room walls, guys. Claire got knocked out at that point in time, so you can't say they weren't fucking. Anyway.
No one's saying that.
Anyway, just 3 months of hotel room walls. It's quiet. It's quiet. And she doesn't hear them doing anything, not running a shower, not having nightmares, not being drunk, not fucking, like, it's just quiet. And that's nice. And part of Bethany's very complicated feelings is even before she knew about the illusion, the house was her prison, but it was also her home. And she had, before everything, before Papa died, she had gotten used to it and gotten used to it being hers. Because Papa went out. He didn't really entertain once, like, everybody else was gone. So he'd go out places, and she never did. And so it was her house. Matthew was married, and Clara was in the city, and Izzy was God knows where at the time. So it was her house. Like, if Annie Van Horst was making decisions, she was making decisions about the house that Papa didn't want to make. And I think that in some ways she has more sympathy for her siblings wanting their prison than she ever has before, because she knows how you take a prison and you make it your home. If you can't leave, you make it that you don't want to, and you have everything. But she's also, like I said, it's the longest she's ever been away, and you never notice how much you've grown until you go away and you come back to people who haven't grown with you, who haven't seen you grow. And, you know, everybody's used to Miss Bethany being a certain way. And even as she changed over the years after Papa died, they were used to it, or got used to it. Oh, that was coming. Anyway, but they've gotten used to it. And so the Bethany that they have in their mind is still the Bethany from 3 months ago. You know, frozen. This is all the stuff. This is not the Bethany who yelled at her siblings after Mac's party because they'd gone off and gambled away fingers and blood. This is, to them, you know, it's never a Bethany who went to a little farmhouse and dragged her siblings there, or went to go find this lady selling, you know, cancer cures, or dragged her siblings through Metropolis like more than once to go find Clara and bring her back and make a plan. They, you know, don't know the Bethany who convinced Matthew to pull that lever. They don't know her. Which means that the house doesn't fit anymore. Everything is a little constricted. Everyone expects Bethany to be a little smaller, a little quieter, a little more of a ghost. Like she has yelled at her siblings more time in the past 3 months that they were doing something stupid that she was mad about than she has in her entire lifetime up to that point. You know, she's more expressive of her opinion. And so, yes, people knowing exactly how you like something is incredibly comfortable, unless that's not the way you like something anymore. And you don't know how to tell them. And so she is thankful for the walls, and she's thankful for the quiet, and she's thankful for the moment to honestly just be by herself in a way that she really hasn't gotten to. But she's also lying in bed and thinking about everything that she did and every way that, like, everything that felt slightly wrong on her skin, and why, and is it her or is it them, or, you know, whose fault is it that she's different? And does she break the house apart and put it back together so it fits her again? Or does she bide her time to find her lady and her unicorn and break all the chains that bind the world?
Great questions to ask. Maybe we'll figure it out in the next 50 episodes. God damn, Kate. Okay.
Hey, you're great.
Hey, you want complicated coming home feelings? I got those for you.
Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, I knew you were gonna hit it out of the park. I didn't realize you were gonna hit one of the spotlights. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yep. That's a lot to think about. That's a lot for Ben to think about as a person, and a lot for Ben as a storyteller to think about, and I'm pleased with both.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to follow that.
I'm glad I don't either.
Well, hard. It was fine.
No, it was fantastic. No one's upset with you at all. I'm deeply
We're only
pleased.
delighted.
Yeah.
So Yeah. So next game we will wake up and we will roll for all of our flaws, and we will, kind of get back into the swing of things, and we will have ourselves some kind of a spooky fucking story. And I think it's going to be pretty great. Yeah, we are approaching 50 episodes, which is a ridiculous number.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm getting Facebook memories now, like layers of them.
Yeah.
On some days where it's like, as different things hit, which is, very nice. Got a lot of feelings about that, most of them positive. But so yeah, you will probably see us in 2 weeks from whenever you're seeing this. That's going to be our objective and our goal. So yeah, I don't like Kate. Kate wrapped it up perfectly. Like that's it's roll credits. Executive producer Dick Wolf. Like that's all that. So yeah. Thank you to my fantastic players. Thank you to Curtis, who makes us look good and sound good, and does a lot of work for us. And I guess thank you. I mean, not I guess, but thank you, Modifius. Yeah, this has been a Cult Divinity Lost actual play stream, and do not worry, we're gonna get real fucking weird with it again. We are not done being terrible and weird. So yeah, we will see you in 2 weeks. It's pretty much hot out there everywhere. Drink more water. You are not drinking enough. I know you. We've been watching, and you're not drinking enough water. So drink more water. Hail hydrate, as some people used to say. And yeah, take care of yourselves. You're worth the work, and we will see you in 2 weeks. So thank you very much. Good night.